everybody with the Parkinson Support Group of Sonoma County. This is Tess Lorraine. I'm the president of the Parkinson Support Group of Sonoma County. And this month's speaker is Dr. Becky Farley. Welcome, Dr. Farley. We're so grateful to have you. And I'm going to just give a brief introduction of what you are presenting today, and then we'll just have you get started. Dr. Farley received a PhD in neuroscience from the University of Arizona, a Master of Science in Physical Therapy from the University of North Carolina, and a Bachelor of Science in Physical Therapy from the University of Oklahoma. She is a published author on exercise for people with Parkinson's disease and gives public and professional seminars worldwide. During her postdoc, she co-created the LSVT Big Therapy Program and completed the initial NIH research on its short-term benefits. She has now created a more comprehensive PD-specific motor cognitive approach that begins with the building blocks of function called PWR moves. The deterioration of these skills lead to functional decline and interferes with all physical activity. Instead of a singular focus on amplitude for generalized whole body movement, the training of amplitude is now connected to function. The intensity and complexity of practice is progressed to mimic real-world physical and cognitive challenges. In addition, the framework allows for the translation of new research as it becomes available. In 2010, she launched the PWR Gym in Tucson, Arizona, a model community facility for implementing ongoing access to cutting-edge rehabilitation, group exercise, and wellness programming. Globally, Dr. Farley, along with other PWR faculty, have trained over 7,000 physical and occupational therapists and exercise professionals to work together to provide proactive and lifelong access to rehabilitation and exercise programming. We are so grateful to have you as our speaker this month.
Thank you very much. I am really happy to be here as well to talk to all of you. So can everyone hear me okay? Thumbs up, okay. And that was a really nice introduction. I feel like it had all the key points that I wish I could spread around the world. So thank you for reading that. Hopefully, I just want to give you more of a big picture about thinking about exercise for Parkinson's. And I know you've had some amazing speakers before me talk about aerobics and strength and other kinds of exercise programs. And so I want to talk more about what makes exercise Parkinson's specific and what makes exercise so beneficial for Parkinson's. So I hope you will leave me some questions. I love to do question and answer. And actually, I feel like I wish I knew more about you because I would like to know more specifics, what you want to hear or what questions you have about exercise or physical activity or therapy or community exercise, whatever, dosage, cognition. Just let me know because I do this all the time and I'd rather it be about you. So just feel free to add your questions. And I guess Tess or Paula, do you want me to save the questions for the end or would you like, can I stop and answer some of them as I go? What would you prefer?
I think for those of you who are on the Zoom, if you have questions, if you wouldn't mind putting them in the chat so that Dr. Farley can see them. And based upon what she just said, the sooner that you put them in the chat, the better. Mm-hmm. And as far as the group for the church, it probably works better for people to ask you in the end because they need to pass the microphone around. So I think that would be best for that time.
Okay, good. Well, I am going to save time for that. Start my timer. So I promise not to go over the hour. I've decided that instead of doing a demo, I would rather show you some videos of the different types of movements and exercises, and what we have available on our website, but also just to stimulate some ideas for you. So, all right, so exercise for brain change. I can tell you that when I entered the field, which was over 20 years ago, I got my first NIH grant to study Parkinson's and exercise and develop the LSVT Big program. The word plasticity, the word exercise for brain change, was kind of taboo. Nobody was using it. And I'm going to give you a little bit of that journey. But today, it is well accepted that one of the benefits of exercise, and actually to me what makes it the perfect medicine, is that it does more than one thing. When you take dopamine, it helps you to make more dopamine on your own. It's when you do exercise, it increases a lot of different neurotransmitters. It does multiple physiological benefit to your brain and your body, multiple systems, not just your neurological system, but your immune system, your your everything, inflammatory processes, all of these things. So it's a multi-purpose tool, and I really feel like it is a physiological tool that we're only beginning to understand, and it's truly beginning to be accepted as medicine. So that makes me very happy after 20 years of being on this podium and speaking to that. And so I'll talk about that. I'm in Tucson, Arizona, by the way. I'm right now sitting in our power gym in Tucson. There's other things happening here today. I'm just taking up space in one of the rooms. And it is almost 110 degrees here in Tucson. So that's a lovely picture, but I would not want to be outside today at all after 10 o'clock a.m. So, all right, let me just change my slides here. All right. Sorry, I just want to move that for a second. So Parkinson Wellness Recovery, that is what PWR stands for. And we are a nonprofit. And in 2010, I started this nonprofit. At that point, I had decided to leave the research lab here in the University of Arizona, where I was in physiology department, and take the show on the road. I decided I wanted to translate the science and do it in the real world, and find a way for people to have access to rehabilitation and exercise for life. And so I started this nonprofit, and we basically, our mission is to enhance the access and awareness of this type of research-driven exercise for everyone with Parkinson's. So we're doing it here in Tucson. It's kind of a model center I'll talk about, and then we're training other people, and we're spreading the word, and we're trying to really promote access. So because that is what our vision is about, that people recognize that exercise is a medicine, and it's just as important as your dopamine meds, maybe even more so. So this is a busy slide, but I just want you to realize the impact exercise can have. And this does not even include all of the research in it's a summary that one, exercise may be preventative, so that it does play a role in preventing the development of Parkinson's disease, even in people who may have risk factors like environmental risk or genetic risk. And it also helps your medication work better. So it's super important that when you decide about what medication you want, how much, that you really think about, is your medication optimized so that you can get the most benefits of exercise? Because if you can exercise better, your medications are going to work better, and you might not need much medication over time. And so that is a huge benefit that, again, only physicians and rehabilitation professionals are only beginning to work together on that, because we see you for a whole hour in a class or in rehab. We see your struggle with movement. And so it's important that that gets communicated to your doctor, and that you really think about. So I'm sorry, I just make sure I keep talking. So it's important that you make sure your exercise and medicine are both complementary, right? Working together and optimized. There's also a lot of research that exercise improves your motor and non-motor symptoms. So that's a symptomatic benefit, just like your medicines. But when you take dopamine, it primarily improves your motor symptoms, not so much your non-motor symptoms. So you get kind of an additive benefit when you do exercise, right? Because you're not only getting a lot of benefits on your symptoms that are motor driven, but also your non-motor from the exercise. So, and lastly, there's a tremendous amount of research, rehabilitation as a professional. I'm a physical therapist. We do exercise with people, but it's more personalized exercise, setting goals. It's about making function exercise. It's about developing personalized plans for people with Parkinson's, but we do practice exercise in terms of fitness, as well as your functional mobility, the things that you do in your everyday life. So there's a lot of research that walking and balance and strength and participating in your life, like continuing to do those things that you love to do, all can benefit from rehab and most any kind of exercise. So the benefit that exercise brings is that not only does it help you with all those things I just talked about, it also affects the disease mechanisms that are triggering cell death. So this is just an example of what are some of those pathophysiological mechanisms. What happens in the brain that makes those dopamine cells die? And you may not be surprised to know that exercise targets all of those different deficits or all of those different mechanisms that are going awry. So exercise upregulates neurotrophic factors. Exercise can improve your mitochondria function, which means your cells have more energy, and it might help them live longer because they're more efficient. They're not struggling, you could say. Exercise also reduces stress in the system, the whole body. And that's one that can make cell death happen faster. And so it's important that, for all of us, that we control that sort of negative plasticity that's happening. And then lastly, there's evidence that exercise can improve the cell's garbage disposal. So it helps the cells clean up their own sort of trash. And that can help with this problem with proteins that are aggregating. That alpha-synuclein is one of the proteins that starts to become toxic, and the cells need to get rid of it. And in Parkinson's, they have a problem getting that toxic protein into the disposal. So that's the beauty of exercise. It does more. It does even more than this, but these are very important if you have Parkinson's, because you want to know that exercise or whatever meds you're taking or whatever emerging therapy you're taking, like a new drug that's supposedly disease modifying, you want to know that it's targeting some of these mechanisms. So that's another thing that exercise does that's very critical in Parkinson's. And so this is my last kind of complicated slide, but I did this to simplify something for you, is why does it matter if exercise changes your brain? Well, let's think about these different stages of kind of Parkinson's. And look at the far left, and this is when people are living in their mid 50s, 40s and 50s. They're just living healthy. They don't have any disease, or they might have some genetics that predispose them to Parkinson's, or maybe they were exposed to some environmental toxins that put them at a higher risk. But if there's actually evidence that exercise can help prevent the onset of a disease. And people that exercise also live longer. so at these very early stages in the disease, they're starting to try to understand, are fit people less likely to get Parkinson's? If you have some genetic predisposition and you start to become a habitual exerciser, because maybe you never liked to exercise, can you slow the onset of the disease or prevent it altogether? And those are important questions, and exercise has a role, even at that period in time. And then let's say that you have been screened and people think you may have a probable Parkinson's. So they put you in this prodromal stage because you don't have the motor symptoms yet. So that green section on disease correction, is it possible to halt or reverse the disease when it first starts, like even before you know that you have it? So that is the period in time when biomarkers, this new Michael J. Fox assay, are very important, for instance, because if you have sleep problems, you have sense of smell problems, and maybe some other sensory problems, blood pressure or changes in cardiac function, they may say, you know what, you may develop Parkinson's. Let's screen you with this biomarker and see if perhaps it's already started. So that is the beauty of a biomarker and why they need more biomarkers. But do you know that there's a study pending right now, an exercise study, to take people in that prodromal period of the disease before they're diagnosed and to get them to become habitual exercisers? So that is Boss Bloom's new study that he's starting. It's really going to be a multi-site, multi-country study as it gets started. And it will take probably a year or two because it's a very big and it's a first of a kind study. And it will test this question, is exercise able to, and you can see those green arrows, if you can halt it altogether, to stop it, then you don't get, that trajectory stays flat. And it may even be possible to reverse it back to the baseline that early in a disease. And then after you're diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, that's that trajectory, that black line, that represents sort of the loss of dopamine over time. Is it possible to change that trajectory? Could you make the slope less steep? That's what that red dotted line represents. And there is evidence now in humans and lots of evidence in animals that that is possible. And that was when I got interested in research in Parkinson's. I came along when the first animal studies were published, and that convinced me. It was so compelling. I was just determined to find a way to implement it, to actually translate it to like the real world, because nobody was exercising 20 years ago, not like today. It was not even a thing. Then there's also another kind of thing exercise can do for the brain, and that is it improves your symptoms. So on the far right in the blue, there is the line, the black line of the slope of the disease severity over time. And then you see that when you take your medications or exercise, that you can shift that line, right? It just shifts up. Trajectory is still the same, but you've just got sort of an immediate benefit. And if you can, the thing about a symptomatic response, we know exercise does this. And if you keep exercising, just like if you keep your medications going, then you can shift that baseline up over time. So that's really good, right? And when you combine exercise with meds, you may end up not needing so many meds over time if you continue to exercise and take your optimal meds. So that is why, that's the implications of why exercise is medicine and why it's so crucial that everyone have access to it. It really should be treated just like medication. It should just be a therapeutic tool that everybody has available at diagnosis. Just like they hand you your medications, then they also, what you need is, can you access this exercise in your community in some way? And can we increase that access? So I'll skip that because I think I kind of, well, all I'll say is 20 years ago on the far left, nobody was challenging people to exercise. In fact, if I was doing therapy with a person with Parkinson's 20 years ago, I would have said, you know what, keep it easy. Here's a strategy. Here's a simple way to do what you want to do. Don't work up too much effort. Don't think too hard, right? Because that was the dogma. And the animal research came out in 2006, and I was reading all that research while I was developing the big therapy. And I can tell you that the LSVT big approach was the first time that people were challenged to work beyond their own physical effort, over and over and over again, doing just whole body movement, nothing magic, just work harder. And that had never been done before. So now 20 years later, people continue to do it, and it's still helpful. But, you know, based upon what I've learned in the research, we need to make your exercise more and more and more complex, more fun, more challenging, cognitively, physically. And there's limits to what I could do with big, right? It's like, okay, you're moving bigger. Now what do I do? And so that's why I've gone on to create new and different things, because you need more than that only. So in order to implement exercise as really medicine and take advantage of all this plasticity, this brain change, we have to have new healthcare paradigms. So on the far right, you know, we have to have a way to implement this. And so that's what I've been really fighting for. And as an organization, it's what I hope we can get more and more into now, because we've actually been doing this for, the building I'm in right now is 16,000 square feet, and we don't have enough space. We've been doing this for 13 years. We've had a facility in the community where we do this rehab and this group exercise and wellness stuff all in one building. And we make it accessible. We work with our members. We work with them on accessing healthcare resources, as well as finding resources in their own communities. So we need to change our paradigms, because there's not, of course, enough of these places. So I'm just going to skip the studies. I think you get the picture. So I just have those. And I want to talk about the paradigm. You know, again, 20 years ago, the only time I would have met you is if you came to see me because of a fall. And it would have been not too late, because we now know that people could get better no matter how many years they've waited. And in fact, I would say that people that are in these, that are more impaired in terms of this Hoehn-Yahr stage, actually get more out of it from a quality of life perspective. And we do intensives with people who are in wheelchairs, who are in walkers. And I know that an intensive works. If I saw you once a week or twice a week, even, I wouldn't really have much hope that I would make a big change in your life. But we know intensity matters, especially in Parkinson's. So we need to see you starting at diagnosis, and we need to see you for life. We can't discharge you. We need to work with you intermittently. Like, you need to have rehabs, allied health services. You need to have a team in the healthcare, but you also need these community people. It needs to be sort of back and forth. You can't just go to group, because there's a lot of things that you also need. And over time, it's going to be really hard to do those group exercise classes if you aren't also getting a personalized plan in your rehab. And so I can talk about that. We do a lot of this back and forth referral in our site all day, every day, because our goal is to keep you in group exercise so that you do not drop out of group. So when you have an injury or an illness, or your medications change and your symptoms change, we know we need to see you more in rehab so we can give you a tune-up so you can go back to your class. And then we can also communicate to your class instructor, what works better, what's happening. So there needs to be this multi-directional, bi-directional process. Oops, sorry. And so this is just giving you the idea that we want you to see a Parkinson's specialized therapist, because if you go to someone that's not specialized in Parkinson's, you will be disappointed and you probably won't go back. And I can tell you that because I've heard it from people for years and years. Because when you see someone specialized, you will know it. They understand Parkinson's. They've been to lots of educational workshops. They want to be your coach for life. They want to help you set goals and personalize your therapy, but also personalize your exercise goals, your life goals. Like some people, maybe they don't like to exercise too much, but they will go on a daily walk with their family, someone from their family or friends. So we have to figure out what's your best plan and help you access that. So we do encourage these one-on-one intensives throughout your life, these little bouts of PTOT speech in any combinations. And I feel like just like you go get your medications tuned up, ideally every 6 months or so, you would want to see a therapist that often. And maybe the therapist just sort of resets your targets and makes and reviews some exercises that you're doing in the community, or refers you to different community resources. Or they might decide to see you for a week solid, or a couple of weeks, or 3 to 4 weeks, but an intensive little package so that it's sort of it resets you, right? It resets that baseline. So this is the model that we do here at the gym. It's what when we train, we do these workshops. Like I said, we train 7,000 people. And our message to them is you need to see these individuals with Parkinson's for life. You need to communicate to the community, help build community networks. You need to have people to refer to back and forth. And if you're a community exercise instructor, your job is to communicate with the rehab, the allied health professionals in your region. You need to establish this bi-directional communication. There are benefits to that I can talk about. For instance, if you ever want exercise to become compensated or subsidized by healthcare, you have community exercise professionals that are trained at certain competency levels, who are willing to be part of the healthcare team and communicate, because if something happens in the community, everyone needs to know it. They can't work in isolation. And so we've been working with the Parkinson's Foundation to help them set up guidelines for the training of exercise professionals and competencies, so that when you go see these individuals, you're getting somebody that understands Parkinson's and they know how to do Parkinson's specific, modification of whatever you're doing, yoga, boxing, dance, whatever exercise it is. That they know what to do, so you get the most out of their class or training. So this is my last slide about PWR, the power, but this is what we do as an organization. We have a gym where I'm at right now. We have an educational workshops that we do here from this site here in Tucson at the gym. We do virtual workshops globally at all different times of the day and night sometimes, because we do them in Europe and other places like Australia and Netherlands. And we're training people to work together, and we're growing our educational offerings so we can keep people involved in learning more about how to work with people with Parkinson's, like the latest research, what to do. And then we have a virtual experience. I'm going to show you some of that a little bit later here. Let's see how I'm doing on my time. And then we have a retreat, and those are sort of the programs that we offer. And it's how I met Ronald Thomas, who actually asked me to do this because he attended our retreat this year, which just was like 2 weeks ago or 3. I don't know. We still haven't quite recovered. So, all right. So few more things. So if you're wondering what you need to do, what's important? Aerobics is absolutely important, but not just boring, straight aerobics. It has to be harder than you think. You have to be, that word progressive is really important. It needs to be harder and harder. You know, you might have to have a little recovery and push yourself again, but you need to have someone help you set that up. I don't know very many people that can just go do a progressive aerobic exercise program. I think you heard from Dr. Korkus, and they're doing that SPARK study, and they're asking people who are not even on medication to exercise 3 and 4 days a week for, I think it's almost an hour, at 70 to 80% heart rate. Now that is really difficult. I am an athlete, and that is hard. And in their first study, it took people 3 months to even be able to do it. So don't think you can just jump on a bike and that you're going to challenge yourself at 80%. It takes a plan. And that's one reason you should go to rehab, because we can give you we can sort of do a baseline with you, see what your starting point is, set some goals, give you some interval training charts, help you understand what equipment to use. And you know, you don't even have to use equipment. You can just use whole body movement. And I'll show you some videos of things, but you know, anything you do can become aerobics depending on how much you challenge yourself. So, and the concept of aerobics is what really helps promote brain health. It's what kind of makes everything work better, and it makes the environment, the brain's environment, healthier. It gets rid of all those negative factors that are interfering with brain health, like stress and sleep problems and inflammation and all those things. And that's what makes exercise potentially protective, because the better and healthier your brain is, the less likely if something changes in your life, like stress, or you're exposed to an environmental toxin or something, you're less likely to trigger a disease. So it's one of those preventative things, ideally, right? The more you exercise, maybe the less probability you have of getting a neurodegenerative disease like Parkinson's. But it's also just, what I love is it's multi-system. So what does that mean? It means it affects everything from your heart to your mood, like depression, to constipation, to your you live longer, less fatigue, though some people might ask me about that. And cognition improves just by doing that kind of aerobic exercise. So you get a whole lot of bang for your effort. So there's even evidence that the dopamine circuits work more efficiently after exercise, right? They sort of, even if you don't make more dopamine, or even if the cells still have Parkinson's and they're dying, the dopamine circuits just work better. And that's probably why some people don't need so much medication, is because the exercise it's optimizing what you have. So, but there's another kind of exercise that's really important, and it's this concept of skill training. And I really believe that whatever this skill training is, the more Parkinson's specific it is, the better. So this is the kind of practice that changes the synapses. It changes the structure and the function connectivity of the brain. It makes, it connects with each different parts of the brain. So it's kind of a use it or lose it type of training. And it can be many different things, but I'm going to try to tell you what I think it should look like, what makes it Parkinson's specific. And that is, probably the number one thing that happens in Parkinson's because of the loss of dopamine is people lose their automaticity. So not only so the less dopamine you have, the more severe your bradykinesia is. And bradykinesia it affects the whole body, even the hands and eyes and breath and voice. And bradykinesia interferes with your habitual everyday movements the most. So if you know that Parkinson's is going to interfere with your habitual automatic movements, like dressing and walking and getting in and out of bed and doing your daily things, then we need to prevent that, right? We need to work on it, overtrain it. And so that is what we train all of these professionals. We train them to think about what goes wrong in Parkinson's and how does that interfere with not only their everyday life, but playing pickleball, fishing, doing the things that you love, and participating in other exercise like yoga and boxing. And the more people understand this, and then it helps them to know what to do when they're teaching a class or they're doing therapy. So we call them the power moves, and they're so basic. These are skills. These are really considered to be motor control skills. And they involve power up means anti-gravity extension. It just means you lift up against gravity. And so I know you can't see me very well, so I'll show you in a second. Weight shifting. If you cannot shift your weight side to side or forward and backward, you can't get started and move. If you can't twist and rotate around your body axis, then you're going to really get fatigued because movement's really inefficient when you don't have rotation. And it makes you stiff and have pain, joint pain. And then transitional movement is the idea of changing your position in space, no matter what position you're in, no matter what you're doing. These are skills that we know, and it's documented, that Parkinson's interferes with. So we want to do them in every position. This isn't even every position. This is just 5 different positions, doing an up, rock, twist, and step. But not only do you want to practice the skill, it's how you practice that's most important. And this is where this is what we teach other people to do, is how do you promote learning? How do you help when people are learning a new skill, right? Or something you've already used to do and now you're trying to relearn it. How do we do that for people with Parkinson's? How do we make our teaching and our instruction methods Parkinson's specific? And so we've come up with like a model of kind of the essential ingredients. We know effort is, you have to start with effort because you can't really do anything else till you get output. So the amplitude, the big and fast, the beyond your self-selected pace. We use cues, and we were going to push you and pace you. We also need your attentional focus. So we have techniques, right, that we teach people that are unique for Parkinson's. So there's research on all these little tools of how they help people learn and move better. And so we teach our instructors and our rehab therapists to use these techniques. We want it to be meaningful because we know that that's really important in people with Parkinson's. I mean, you can box all day, but can you tie your shoe? Can you change positions in space and roll? We know meaning is that is a very important driver, as well as reward, and how people this is where you're having a personalized plan can really be beneficial. And then we have ways of challenging you cognitively. So instead of just moving, you're now moving and having to think. And the truth is, sometimes when you're just moving, you're also challenging cognition. If I train different ways to get on and off the floor and made it an exercise, that is already a cognitive challenge, even if I didn't add more cognitive challenge. But of course we would as you got better. So this is just sort of the ingredients that make whatever you do Parkinson's specific. And so we teach people how to do this in rehab and in exercise programs. So, and this is just putting it together in terms of Parkinson's specificity. We want you to move better no matter what activity you're doing. Gait training, reach and grasp with your hands, getting dressed, balancing with Tai Chi. You will do better in all of those things if the person that's teaching the class, working with you, understands the tools that I just showed you, understands these skills and how to help you move with better quality, no matter what you're practicing. So that's really the essence of what we teach and what we do here at the gym and everything. So I mentioned that our workshops that we do are, they're accredited by the Parkinson's Foundation. And, you know, there are new exercise guidelines that are available to the public. That's that I'm showing you on the right. And that is a wonderful thing now to have, because there are these, and they have published the paper. We were a part of the first year pilot, and now we're continuing to be accredited and hoping to see other educational programs offer these same kind of, like offer education that helps people reach this competency. So there's a lot of exercises out there. I don't know what your resources are, but you know, we encourage functional fitness if you want to be kind of the purist, right? So we have Power Moves group classes, Power Moves circuit classes, but we also teach people to integrate the Power Moves and the whole, all of those Parkinson specific principles into boxing and dance and even aerobics like pedaling and swimming. So all of these things can help you. And the better your instructor is, the more you're going to get out of it. And the more it's going to help you in your everyday movement. Because it's, like I said, it's not enough to just spin your legs on a bicycle. If you also can't walk faster and walk over obstacles and maneuver outside on a hiking trail. So it's, whatever you do in exercise, we want it to benefit your life, your everyday life. And I mentioned that, you know, you don't always have to do aerobics on a bike or a treadmill. These kind of classes, the harder you work and maybe do interval trainings and you're swimming or strengthening or dance, pole walking, you can raise your heart rate and make it aerobic as well. So, and then there's other kinds of exercise that they have really important, we can learn a lot from them. Tai Chi, these are very mindfulness-based exercises, or they're tapping into your sort of creative dopamine pathways. So those limbics, emotional drive, these are important because they make you feel better. They help you get rid of stress. They make you feel empowered because you're doing something you like and it's fun and it's maybe something like a craft, making things. So these are also important approaches that are addressing your brain change as well in a different way. And I think it all needs to go together, right? These kind of programs. You need to have like a little guided plan.
Thank you, Dr. Farley. That was an amazing presentation. I'm so glad we have it recorded so that we can offer it to people online when they need to review it again. Thank you for your service in the community too. What a wonderful thing you're doing.